Avoiding a School District Test Cheating Scandal, A Tale of Two Cities. I'd like to introduce our presenters today. We can go to the next slide. Okay, first of all, these two handsome gentlemen. First, Dr. John Freemer. He's the founder of Caveon Test Security, which helps improve security in test development, test administration, reporting, and score use. We assist states, test program sponsors, and other entities to investigate testing irregularities. Dr. Freemer is the president of Caveon Consulting Services and is actively involved in doing security audits and other related services, such as developing security handbooks for states and districts, helps with conducting security investigations, and a variety of other things. John wears a lot of hats. John has more than 50 years of testing experience, including management positions at ETS and Pearson as well. And also, Dr. Woodruff, a longtime member of the Caveon team. He has worked in the testing industry for 36 years, including 20 years at ETS. He oversaw the worldwide testing as executive director of CBT. He served as president of the National College Testing Association for 4 years, which presented him with a Lifetime Achievement Award. In addition to his work with Caveon, he's also an associate professor of psychology and performs as a musical conductor. So, kind of some interesting gentlemen today. We'll to the next slide. Okay, I'll go ahead and turn it over to Dr. Freemer.
Very pleased to be part of this webinar this morning. We'll try to move along smartly, recognizing that it's at the school district level that a lot of the things that happen in testing impact. They're the ones that have to administer the tests, report them, deal with the students, parents, and school boards, and all other places. So we're going to start out talking about two city school districts, each of which faced a major test security breach that involved educators in the district. And those are, tend to be the most troublesome security breaches when it's actually staff who are involved, not just students. One district became a national disgrace, terrible thing for them and everyone who worked there, and the other district became a national model, winning a great deal of praise. What did each district do to result in such different outcomes? Next slide. First district, as those of you who know K-12 education, school district world, probably would have known that I was talking about the District of Atlanta. I know a lot about that situation and that I was involved in the early analyses of what was going on there. Not the actual investigations. Caveon did not have a role in any of the interviewing or investigations, but in the run-up to how big was the problem, I had occasion to have multiple visits to the district and talk to the staff. And the way we would characterize what was going on there was that the district took a very defensive approach. Deflect, disclaim, deny. Nothing going on here. You just don't understand our situation. You don't think our kids can learn. You have it in for us. Next slide. And the metaphor that I would use to characterize the situation in Atlanta was circling the wagons, us against them. Then that extended to rejecting the legitimacy of inside whistleblowers when staff in schools try to say that something's not right here. The attitude was, well, we know that everything is right, so the problem must be with you, the whistleblower. So people were reassigned or not rehired. All outsider views were completely rejected, including the press. The Atlanta Journal-Constitution was very active in this situation, but the Atlanta schools went to the extent of not even allowing reporters to attend meetings where they could control them. I just flat out rejected anything that was said. The district, pretty bold behavior, defied authorities such as the governor, who was trying to get them to take action, said, no, he's just prejudiced against us. We have to resist in every way we can. And so what they continued to do was fight to maintain secrecy until the battle was lost, and there was no secrecy anymore, and you ended up with 61 Georgia Bureau of Investigators working with subpoena powers to investigate the district, which was a terrible thing for, particularly for all the teachers and administrators in the district who had done nothing at all wrong, but they were swept up in the problems that the ones who were misbehaving created. Next slide. Kind of a refreshing contrast is incident at the Baltimore City School District. This I do know from the press, not from direct involvement, but what and hearing also directly from folks from the district. The district administrators took an open approach, accept the fact that there was a problem, take action, communicate about it. I'll say more about that in the next slide. They did not try to deny they had a problem. You know, it looks like we have a problem here. That's what the evidence says. Let's collect evidence, protect everybody's privacy rights. Let's follow all the rules, but let's look into what's going on, and then let's take decisive and open action and communicate both about the process and the outcomes. And they won national recognition and praise for their behavior. And I ran into it. There was a National Center for Education Statistics convening of folks to talk about what we can do in test security. And Baltimore was represented at that event because of the way their behavior was characterized. You would have to have felt very good if you were with that district to see what came to them because of their behavior. So let's turn to the next slide, just contrasting the two urban districts and what they did. These are the way at Caveon we look at what was really significant about the two different situations. One is be prepared, have a plan for responding to a breach. My dad was a New York City fireman, and we had fire drills in our house when I was a small child. At 7 or 8 years old, I would have known how to get outside of my upstairs bedroom window if the doorknob was hot or if there was smoke. You don't want to decide what to do when you're in the middle of the emergency. Attitude is important. Communicating at every level, including the superintendent level and down through central office and school level, that we're going to do the right thing here. We don't tolerate such misbehavior. That's not the way we are. And attitude turns out to be critical in all security issues. Communicate effectively. You can't control exactly what reporters do. That's not how it works. But you can develop your story and communicate it. And often that's what will be used if it's a fully worked out, articulated story and you've developed lines of communication with the media in your area. Then if there is a problem, take clear and forceful action and let people know what you're doing. The worst thing that you can do in the test security realm is identify a problem and then not act on it. Try to sweep it under the rug. It's just not going to work. And in the long run, you're much better off to deal directly with it. And then learn from the experiences of others, such as the ones we're describing here. It's what I tell my grandchildren and now even great-grandchildren. You don't have to make all the mistakes yourself. You can learn from other people's mistakes. So let me stop for a minute. We're about to turn to smaller districts. Have we received any questions, Michelle, from any of our attendees?
Nope, not yet. So I think we can just carry on and we'll stop again at the end.
Okay. Lou, you want to pick up?
I sure do. Thank you so much, John. Great to be here, folks. And I love school district work. I've spent a lot of time teaching in school districts at the beginning of my public school districts, beginning of my career, and love the work that it's done there for sure. We're going to talk about two other districts that are smaller. I'm not going to reveal exactly their names. One is from the south, and that's actually the first one we'll talk about. The second one was from the northeast, and we knew about the Atlanta and Baltimore, of course, from the national news. Neither of these made national news. The one district uncovered this threat that they were facing, and both schools were facing this, which was organized student cheating. So they uncovered that threat, and they took steps to respond to it that actually minimized the damage and actually promoted their reputation. The other district remained completely unaware of the threat until it was revealed by the local press. Press actually came and talked to the principal at the school, and he denied it. So they released an article, which was then a surprise to the district because apparently the principal had reported it up the line. So we're going to take a look at what each of these districts did differently to result in such different outcomes. Next slide, please. All right, there you go. The Wise Owl. I call it the Heads Up School District. And their mantra was monitor, confirm, and respond. Very much like the Baltimore district. Next slide, please. Good. First thing they have to do is accept that student cheating is a possibility. There was a survey done by the Josephson Institute. 95% of 40,000 college students admitted that they cheated in high school. Of course, 70% of those folks said they still cheat in college, and the others probably had an epiphany of some sort. But we have to accept that student cheating is a possibility, and that school district certainly did. They were using data forensics, applied analyses to the back-end data, which helped to identify that there was some organized cheating going on. They also had a backup of formal web monitoring, which was able to identify stolen content on the web, the same content that was being found to be anomalous in the data forensics analyses. So what they did is they announced to the students who were a part of this that their scores were in question and that statistically they could not be verified, meaning that the school district could not confirm that these were valid test scores. Consequently, we're going to give you the opportunity to retest. There was no accusation of cheating, and that was important in the strategy of the school district because it didn't give the students very much to push back against. They could come back and retest, which they did, and they did not do nearly as well. This approach also, of course, avoided public discourse and didn't end up with any negative press coverage as a result. So that's a good set of recommendations for folks to take up. Let's take a look at the other school district. All right, that's the Head Down School District. And they had a three-term mantra also. We're okay, you're okay, everything's okay. Next slide, please. You may have worked in places like that. Cheating doesn't happen here, absolutely not. It's like Lake Wobegon where all students are above average. They were doing no data forensics. There was no formal web monitoring in place to uncover anything. Well, what happened is that students who were not cheating learned about the students who were. They, of course, were unhappy because it skewed their scores. So they reported it to their parents, and the parents, of course, went to the school, and the school said, no, not here. And then the parents went to the press. The press went to the principal and said, no. And eventually the story was run, surprising the higher-up folks at the district. And of course, as you would expect, what would follow would be negative discourse and the criticism of the management of the district. So in the end, the outcomes were not nearly as good for the Heads Down district. Let's go to the next slide. Okay, so takeaways for all school districts. John, you want to jump in here and talk about this? Because this applies also to the Baltimore and Atlanta districts.
Sure. Your test content is very likely to be compromised. If you're in a large district, lots of students being tested, lots of folks involved in the process, there are going to be problems. And some students will cheat. This is just a fact. They're people. And some fraction of them are going to at least try to cheat. The more effective you are, the less actual cheating will take place. But some will succeed. You will have to then deal with security incidents of some type. Minimize them by maintaining adequate protection and detection measures, but be prepared when those incidents occur with what we call a security incident response plan. Work through formal, all parties involved. That's going to be very helpful to you. Next slide. We thought at this point, just to review with the attendees, the kinds of risks that we need to deal with as we plan and manage our assessments. Copying, that doesn't just go back decades, it goes back millennia. You can find evidence of copying going way, way back in time. They didn't have it thousands of years ago, but photographing test questions and answers is a current situation, much worse even than 10 years ago. I used to think that the Apple device I carried was primarily a phone. It turns out that for many of my younger descendants, it's really a camera. It's a handy camera that you can actually even text from time to time when you're not sending photos, and you can use to take pictures in the classroom of tests unless you're very thoroughly controlled access to cell phones. And in that case, it doesn't matter whether it's a print test or a computer screen. Taking the pictures is still a serious problem. Anything that allows exposure in advance to test questions creates an unlevel playing field. It's unfair. And that is a risk that we all need to work to prevent. A problem that's most worrisome, even though it's actually rather rare. You wouldn't know from the media coverage, but assistance by teachers or proctors before or during testing just undermines the whole idea of a common measure for all students. My estimate, it's no more than 1% of all teachers and proctors involved in testing, which is way better than any of the other domains that we work in other than testing within the legal profession. But we have zero tolerance for it, so it's still a problem. Hacking into test content or results, a lot of efforts are made to protect our systems, but there's some very clever young people out there with high levels of technical skills. And then impersonation. Even in a school setting where often the teacher really knows these kids, sometimes that's not where the testing is being done. It's being done in a lab or other setting. The person in charge doesn't know the kids. But even if you do know the kids, what we've run into is switching place. Lou is a really good test taker. I'm not so good. We both sit down and we switch computers that we work at if we're not being carefully monitored. And I get the benefit of Lou's expertise on what's supposed to be my score. Next slide. I think we shift back to you, Lou, for this one.
This is good. All right, we do. I've put together 12 steps that as school district folks might consider taking in preparation for spring testing. These are not like somehow sacred bullets here. And I'm sure that folks out there, you could probably come up with another 12 on top of this, and maybe not a bad exercise to do following the webinar at some point. But I thought I'd put down 12 that seemed to me in my forefront of thinking when I'm thinking about school district testing. First one is minimizing test exposure within the required testing windows. And I know you look at that and you say, well, wait a minute, the same number of kids are going to take it no matter how big the window is. You know, is the window open for 2 weeks or 4 weeks or whatever? But I'm really not talking about numbers of test takers, but I'm talking about the time that the items are exposed. If an item is exposed over a course of 2 weeks versus over a course of 4 weeks, there's much more opportunity for collusion among students and passing that information on to students who are going to test in the future. So trying to minimize the number of windows, the size of those windows, critically important. And of course, difficult, number two, is in minimizing that exposure, is how to manage the special schedule testing. Tests that are given on the ADA accommodations, people who are absent, and they're coming in and sometimes taking a test outside the window that everybody else has taken inside the window. That might give them unfair advantage again. Number three, in many school districts, the individual schools are responsible to prepare a test security plan, how they're going to keep the test secure. If that doesn't happen in your district, something to think about introducing. The security arrangements at each test site, though, should be reviewed and updated by the school each year, or at least reviewed centrally. And along with that, number 4, the policies for the school district for post-test reporting, particularly on how to report irregularities and what constitutes irregularity. Number 5, the policies and procedures documents. If it's a test administration manual, sometimes it's other policy or procedures documents that are forwarded out to the schools. Check them to confirm that updates aren't necessary, and if they've been done, ensuring that folks out there have the most updated copy. This one's a little bit fussy for some folks when you tell you're going to provide retraining or refresher training for staff administering the exam. You know, this is not rocket science. We don't need retraining. But the retraining is more for an awareness than anything else and an opportunity to emphasize the importance of maintaining security. Next slide, please. There we go. Have all testing staff re-sign non-disclosure agreements. This is actually, as you well know, going to be different in some school districts. There may be policies in place in school districts. There may be union issues in terms of who has to sign, how many times, when, and where. But having a non-disclosure agreement in place is really important, and if your situation allows a re-signing of those agreements, that would be a good thing to do. I'm assuming that as policies and procedures are forwarded, appropriate legal review of them is made, and it may be appropriate then to check to see what new things are in there and what additional review is necessary. Or there may be other incidents that have occurred in the district that suggest a further review of the policies and procedures. They're already out there. Number 9, chain of custody policies. I love that phrase, chain of custody. Who has control over the secure data at every instant? And how do they pass it from where to where? And how is that protected? And more importantly, how can we track and monitor who has it, where it is, and when they have it? And I'm not just talking test books in this situation, but also passwords for launching tests, reviewing how those are protected and what those policies are and how they're being monitored. Very important thing in preparation for your upcoming testing. And of course, security incident communication protocols. If something does happen out there, who tells who, when, how do they tell it, what form, is it in writing, how do they maintain copies for themselves? There should be protocols for reporting incidents that could be security anomalies worth following up. And then tied into that, number 11, what do you do in escalating irregularities in your district? Are there specific procedures? What gets copied and maintained at the site? What gets forwarded on and to whom? How is that escalated? Who gets involved? Is there a review committee, etc.? And then finally, number 12, investigating. A tricky thing to do because of issues of privacy and other legal considerations. So there should be a real plan in place for how investigations are going to be conducted and when an outside source is going to be brought in, if necessary, to follow up with them. So 12 not commandments, but 12 suggestions for preparing districts for spring testing. And again, I'm sure another 12 or more could be popped under here very easily. All right, I'm going to pass it on back. I think this goes to John. Rochelle.
Yeah.
Michelle,
So
have we gotten questions?
We have a couple, yes. So I'll go ahead and read those to you. First of all, we have a question. What are the dangers of having classroom teachers proctoring state-mandated exams in their individual classrooms? I recall back in my days, the student body was taking the test in the gym or auditorium, and all staff was present.
It is a very, a very common practice for teachers to administer at least paper and pencil tests to their own students. One of the things that we recommend is, if that is the practice and it's not one that you're inclined to change, we would prefer that it not be the classroom teacher, but if that is your practice, that you have a monitoring system in place where there are other educational professionals circulating. It's not that the average teacher is inclined to misbehave. They're very honorable, noble people in general, but there is some small fraction that will behave much better if they know that there's a monitor circulating. Other questions?
Yeah, I think we have time for a couple more. Also, if you think of a question after the webinar is over today, feel free to email me. You should have my email address from the webinar invite, and I'll make sure that we get an answer back to you. Okay, the next question. What first steps should a district take in ramping up their test security?
I'll jump in.
Do you want me to lead off, Lou, with that one, or do you want to take that?
Let me make a comment, and then you can jump in and fill in my blanks,
sure,
which will be substantial, I'm sure. I think a couple of first steps. Understand the problem and understand your current readiness for it. So what indications are there of what security issues or concerns? And what protections do you currently have in place? Then you do the risk analysis from that. And you say, well, what is likely to happen? What could happen? And what would we do? So it's heads down, hard group work once you define what we've got and where we are to determine what it is we need to do next. And a very, very scientifically ordered process of brainstorming and thinking and planning is probably what would take you. John, I'm sure you have something to add to that.
I like that answer a lot, Lou. I am always eager to see responsibility clearly defined. So there are formal defined roles, district test coordinator, school test coordinator, within state assessments. But having someone at the district level who has test security in his or her job description and is kind of paying attention on behalf of the whole district and all the schools, I think that's a very good step. So let me stop at that.
Okay, great. We did have one more question just come in, Jeff. I don't think we have time to address that. We want to respect the 30-minute time frame, but we will make sure you get an answer by email. Can we go to the next slide, please? Nope. Okay. There we go. Okay, I just want to let everyone know that you will be receiving this resource document as part of your benefits of attending our session today. We've tried to provide some helpful policies and procedures, some things for you to look at within your district. So you'll receive that from me in a day or so, along with the recording and the slides. So look for that. And also just want to let you know this district webinar today is the first in the series that we'll be offering. We're going to continue to offer these 30-minute sessions for you all, at least through the first half of this year. Our next session is scheduled for March 1st. It will be on site monitoring and kind of some best practices you can incorporate for that. And so we'd love to have you join. You should see an invite from me based on your attendance today. Again, thank you to Dr. Freemer and Dr. Woodruff for your presentation today, and we appreciate your time.
Thank you.
All right, thank you now. Take care, everyone.
Everyone have a great day.